deep uncertainty, and pivotal shifts, traps to be avoided, right choices to be made. Join me, Tian Wei, for answers from the Swiss Alps with brilliant minds and key players. A world in change. A World Insight special on the World Economic Forum 2019. Hello and welcome to a special program of World Insight with me, Tian Wei, here in the World Economic Forum 2019, a world in change. For this year's World Economic Forum, there is the absence of some delegations. However, there are more voices coming from different parts of the world, particularly emerging and developing countries. And today, we're going to meet some of those who are coming from those economies and sharing with us their ideas of governance. First, let's meet President of Costa Rica. In an exclusive interview with CGTN, he helped us to understand what he terms as people-oriented policy. There has to be constant discussion with the public about where the future direction is for our country and how the economic policy will serve that purpose. Let's listen in. Mr. President, what a pleasure to see you in WEF 2019.
It's my pleasure to be here with you as well.
In a transformative time, how are you, as the president of a developing country in Central America, seeing all these changes going on around you?
Well, it's quite an exciting time to be in government, in challenging as well. But I believe we have to, I frame it on three main characteristics. We have to have courage, hope, and empathy with reason, because we need hope in today's world. And a country as Costa Rica, its mandate is to provide hope to the rest of the world as well.
Hope, they say, is not a strategy, but it's a very important quality of leadership, they say, sir. So how is hope likely to lead to actions? That's the real link, isn't it?
Indeed. Hope provides passion and purpose, and also positive purpose based on empathy. But you're right, you need also reason behind it and a plan. That's why we're using, for example, decarbonization of the economy as a plan to provide hope, but also purpose and economic growth. In the case of Costa Rica, our electric matrix is 99% renewable and clean. So by decarbonizing, for example, transportation, it's a way to reduce cost, reduce dependency on fossil fuels, and to improve our economy and at the same time improve our environment.
But you know, Mr. President, one of the things we're facing these days is a cycle of elections in many countries. So you have a beautiful goal and a wonderful blueprint already being primarily implemented. But what about the future stages of this blueprint? That requires long-term thinking. Earlier, I remember Professor Schwab at the opening ceremony was talking about people now being tied up so much by daily crisis management, not long-term thinking. But election cycle is a real thing. So how, in a way, can you guarantee what you are mapping out today is going to be a real goal for tomorrow?
Well, the period in Costa Rica is of 4 years. Actually, it's a short period. But what is the strategy? That's why I talk about hope as well, because it's passion and it's embedded not in a political party, but on the whole population. And when it becomes something that's not of one political party, but of the whole population, it's not a government policy strategy, it's a state strategy. So that's what we are aiming for. And Costa Rica has as a state strategy not only peace, but sustainability. So this is within that, that main track that's not only of my government, it's of a whole country.
What is the trick of doing it? The secret to success of advocacy?
Well, I believe people, especially in today's world, we're looking for purpose. We're looking for a direction. There's lots of uncertainty. That's why the power of hope provides that passion. But then you have to have the blueprint. You have to provide the steps so people can. It's lots of advocacy, but also that means it's a lot of leading. Leading with example, leading with action, leading with data, and making things happen. That's really
Talking about vision and blueprint. Belt and Road Initiative, that has already become such a catchphrase in a way, but it is mainly about infrastructure. It's about real connectivities. That's probably even more important than the name itself. So, Mr. President, how do you see your country making the choice, being the second Central American country to subscribe to BRI, Belt and Road Initiative?
Indeed. Well, Costa Rica is in a strategic point in the Americas.
Yes.
It's in the middle of the Americas. It's in the same time zone that many relevant countries in the north and in the south. And also, we have connection with both the Caribbean, the Atlantic Ocean, and the Pacific.
Yes.
So it's really a strategic point. Infrastructure in this sense, we are working on building a cargo train to the Caribbean.
Mm-hmm.
We're also building a electric urban train, and we are increasing the size of our port in the Pacific. In March, a new port is going to operate in the Caribbean. Currently, with China, we're working on the highway route to the Caribbean. And actually, the last contract for the new equipment for the trains, has been won by a Chinese company. So there are lots of commonalities and lots of things we can do together, because it is a strategic point there. It's just above the Panama, and that means it's just above the Panama Canal, but also with all the benefits included that provides Costa Rica.
But you know, Mr. President, a lot of people have been saying, oh, China, the rising country, what is it having in mind? You know, with this gigantic infrastructure connectivity scheme and project going on, is it about having more geopolitical influence in wherever the project would reach? On the other hand, you could argue any infrastructure project connecting people together, of course, will have an impact on whether geopolitics or the way people live. So how do you see this debate, the nature of this debate, as a participant of this Belt and Road Initiative?
I think we're living in a world that's become more multipolar, and actually, yes, China is becoming is already one of the main players in this game. But for me, what I put the first, it's about the people and my people. Triggering politics in Costa Rica for infrastructure, for job creation, and to protect the environment that benefit the people in Costa Rica. And in that, I see that the alliance with China can help in that direction. With the relation between China and Costa Rica started in 2007.
Yes.
It was the first Central American country that started to have a bilateral relation with China. And I believe that the beacon that both countries should have is the benefit of our peoples, and that's what I'm aiming for.
So you think that shared vision is extremely important in this sense?
Yes, and a vision that's centered on the benefit of people. That's really important.
But Mr. President, you know, your country is in Central America. There's always an interesting balance that your country needs to take, regionally and beyond. So how do you see that issue in this overall backdrop of balance strategically you have to take? Whether it's about the geopolitics and economy, or it's about for the benefits of the people and also the region balance, how do you see this topic being played out in this bigger picture? As
a small country, we need to understand those win-win situations.
Yes.
And my leadership is aiming to find those in the relation with different countries. Example with China in relation with infrastructure.
Yes.
That's a win-win situation. With other partners, regionally, for example, the fight against narcotics.
Yes.
We have lots of commonalities, and that's a win-win situation with cooperation. So looking for those angles is what I believe has helped us to move forward positively.
Two questions. One is, does win-win mean China wins twice? Secondly, are you saying you're doing win-win only because you're talking to a media coming originally from China?
It's when both parts win and both are satisfied. I believe that's the essence of a win-win situation. And I believe that's the positive thing in the bilateral relation.
Yeah.
And also I believe with the Chinese media or any, the relevant part is also with good partnerships is to be straightforward with what we are dealing with and talking about.
Yeah.
So I feel really comfortable about what the relation has been with China in the past 12 years of relation, and also looking forward to what the next level of that relation could be.
What would that be?
The next step could be going further on, for example, cultural matters. We have students, exchange students to come to Costa Rica to learn Spanish. We have a Confucius Center in San Jose already working to know more about the Chinese culture. And with those elements, we can understand better, in a better way, how we can take this relation to a next level.
So that's the real connectivity that you are talking about now.
Yes.
It's not just infrastructure on the ground, but rather here and also in the heart. So, Mr. President, I do have a last set of questions for you. Uncertainties, for example, geopolitics, trade wars, so-called. We're approaching 90 days of U.S.-China, their negotiation time. So, Mr. President, how do you see this unpredictability for you when you're making your decisions on a daily and a long-term basis, Mr. President?
Well, first of all, Costa Rica relies on multilateralism.
Yes.
We are a country with no army. We abolished the army 70 years ago. We rely our diplomacy in multilateralism and also commercially. Costa Rica is a really open country. We have free trade agreements with most of all our commercial partners. So we also need to rely on the international framework to work if there are any differences.
Yes.
We believe in those schemes. And currently, I believe our take on it is we need to diversify our risks.
Yes.
We need to diversify our risk because something may happen in one corner of the world or another place.
What do you mean by diversify? Exactly how do you diversify?
Well, play with the polarity of current world. We need to be connected with the different parts of the world, with Asia, with Europe, with North America, with South America.
But that could be tricky, right? I mean, you have to do a balance act every day.
Well, but I believe balance is a good strategy as well.
Mr. President, we are seeing a rising generation of political leaders around the world, you yourself included in that generation. What do you consider as the most important quality you and your peers are having, possessing, and should maintain?
Passion is part of politics, and we need to provide hope to people, especially because in our context, people need to feel that their governments are delivering things that benefit their own lives.
Yes.
And the most important task for current leadership is to act in a way that people feel directly in their lives the benefits. And that might be the most tricky and complicated part of it, especially when we're talking of international commerce, geopolitics, and macroeconomics. But then how to translate those policies in change in the neighborhood or in the families, that's the real challenge. But I believe that's the duty of us as people in government, to do things and improve people's lives, and so it's tangible what's happening.
I can see, Mr. President, you already got a direction for your roadmap over there. Thank you, Mr. President. What a pleasure to have you on CGTN. Thank you so much, sir. That's the President of Costa Rica in an exclusive interview with us on CGTN. It's not just about the governance, but also how to bring out the competitive edge of developing countries and emerging economies. That was argued by the Prime Minister of Armenia, who talks about his country's advantage in IT development and also its future cooperation possibilities with China. Mr. Prime Minister, what a pleasure to see you in the World Economic Forum.
It's a pleasure for me too.
Thank you, sir. China-Armenia is having a dynamic year. That at least is a quote coming from our ambassador to your country. Help us to understand what is the nature of this dynamism.
For our countries, it's very important to have real relations in economy. But both of our nations are very old nations with old culture, with old civilization, and I think that is the mutual base for further development of our relations. And last year, yes, we opened a Chinese school in Yerevan, and it was very important event for Armenia not only in terms of politics, in terms of bilateral relationship, but also in terms of culture and in terms of education.
Armenia is not necessarily well known for being the IT center of the world. So what potential can we exactly approach, Mr. Prime Minister? And as you may know, when it comes to technology development and also investment, it has a lot to do with the quality of education, has a lot to do with the interconnectivity of the country and the region. So, Mr. Prime Minister, shed some light for us about that.
Yes, you know, for our government, it's absolute priority to develop technological sector in Armenia, and we are intended to make Armenia like a technological country. In Soviet time, Armenia was a leader in Soviet IT sector. In that time, it was quite different thing, but we have tradition of being technological leader in our region. We are going to make our investment environment more friendly for foreign investors. We are going to have regulatory simplifications in our economy, and we are going to reform our tax code and make it more investment friendly.
Mr. Prime Minister, your plan sounds wonderful and very inspiring. But you know, to me, it's very interesting to see the divide we're seeing right now. Economies like Armenia is trying its best to be connected to everybody. But there are others who only, at this time, try to looking inward, talking about more divide, a disconnected world, rather than subscribe to a more connected world. To you, as a developing country leader, how do you see these very different ideas going on right now about what should be the reality of the world?
The connected world is very important for us. Our vision of the world is connected world. It's world with cooperation, with international cooperation, and that's our general idea. And we want to make Armenia as a very important and very active part of contemporary connected world, and we are trying to bring new investment, foreign investment to Armenia. It is a kind of tool to be connected with the whole world.
Globalization 4.0, of course, is the catchphrase for this year's World Economic Forum. Earlier at the opening ceremony, Professor Klaus Schwab was talking about globalization 4.0. He was suggesting that there actually has to be more connectedness, more dialogue, rather than less. He's also been talking about we should look to the future, not to be bogged down by just the so-called crisis management on a daily basis. As a leader, how do you see the two arguments he made?
You know, I've said already that connected world with dialogue, with cooperation, it matches with our vision. Now we are in the process of implementing a very important project, North-South highway project, and it shows our intention to be connected. And we are intended to connect Black Sea with Persian Gulf, and we believe that cooperation and dialogue, it is only a reliable way to solve all crises. It's very important to have opportunity to share ideas, not only about about one country, because it isn't possible nowadays to live in a world isolated. It isn't a good way. We should know each other better. What we are doing in our country, it can have impact in other countries as well.